Okay, Alex, are you ready?
Let's do it.
Welcome to Tailoring Talk with your host, Roberto Revilla. I'm a bespoke tailor, menswear designer, and owner of Roberto Revilla London suit, shirt, and shoemakers. It's the podcast where you drop in for the threads, but often leave with something unexpected. We'll meet self-starters and creators to learn about their journeys and the lessons they've learned along the way. Please support the show by subscribing, and it helps so much if you take a few seconds to rate and review. I'm joined today by an entrepreneur, board director, author, and keynote speaker who helps business leaders work out the best tools to design and implement winning business strategies and reach their goals. His passion is helping them balance impact and profit so that businesses do good while doing well. His latest book, Secrets of Next Level Entrepreneurs, delivers 11 powerful lessons to thrive in business and lead a balanced life. His upcoming book, The Strategy Legacy, which is due later this year, has been described by early reviewers as the best strategy book they've ever read. Tailoring Talkers, let's welcome Alex Brueckmann to the Tailoring Talk Show. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me, Roberto, and for this warm intro.
You're so welcome. I'm so honored. And I really, really want to get my hands on the Strategy Legacy, but I probably should read the other book first, right? Before you let me have that one. Yeah, exactly. I'm wondering if you're my first German on the show. You're definitely not my first person from Canada. There's been loads of those. But I think you are my first German.
Yay! Let's pop the champagne.
Exactly. I love you guys so much. One of my clients flew all the way over from Frankfurt to see me a couple Fridays ago. And I know he's probably listening. Michael, hi. It was so good to see you. He's just the loveliest. You all are. I love visiting your country. And it's so nice to have you here. And
Thank you so much.
Yeah, your very gentle, lovely German accent on Tailoring Talk. But you are in Canada, in Vancouver, and you found your way there. Why, Alex?
Because of love. I met a German-Canadian woman some years back in Germany, and she was very upfront from the very beginning that she at some point would definitely want to go back home. And that's what we did at the probably worst possible moment in time, end of March 2020. We all know what happened there.
Yeah,
with an 8-week-old boy on our arms. It was kind of a nightmare situation to move to a different continent, but we made it safe and sound.
Yeah, I'm so glad. So glad that you're here talking to us today. So, secrets of next level entrepreneurs. Give us a little bit of your background and your journey to becoming an author speaker, because you've obviously worked in corporations previously, and then you've started your own businesses or founded your own businesses, built your own businesses. So for the listeners, give us a bit of background and take us from baby Alex to today.
There are sort of two key defining elements that come together in me as a person. One is a massive passion for content creation. So I used to be a radio journalist, a music journalist before I studied business. And the second passion is business. So that just came over time and merged into what it is today. And a similar merger happened within me because I basically have this entrepreneurial history. So this is my third company that I started and grew. But at the same time, I have years of experience in big corporations and as a management consultant. So I have this trifecta view on business as an entrepreneur, as a consultant, and as a manager in a large business.
Yeah.
And combining those three perspectives with the experience of being a a content creator in the media industry, and at the same time loving to help my clients, which are mostly large corporations, to get their head around the future that they want to build. This is sort of the backdrop against which I wrote Secrets of Next Level Entrepreneurs, but also the strategy legacy. The strategy legacy even more so than Secrets of Next Level Entrepreneurs. Secrets of Next Level Entrepreneurs is a book that I wrote together with 9 other contributors. So I invited people to contribute chapters that are basically compartmentalized knowledge and insights into a certain topic. So you can read each chapter individually and put the book back on the shelf. You can read it back to front if you want. They don't connect from a content perspective so that they build on each other. They do, however, have strong ties and strong links. And that's what my job was as the onthologist, basically, to weave these chapters together so that people see the thread that not everyone is seeing. So there might be people that are like, yeah, but how does conflict management and disruption and self-care connect? These are 3 different chapters in the book. They do connect. And we make sure in the book that we link back and forth and that we help readers embrace the entirety of what it means to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. People that are listening, because we'll have people who have built businesses that are, I guess, perception-wise, are extremely successful. They're now the CEO of a business that has got, maybe dozens, hundreds of employees, is from the outside a well-oiled machine, has departments and all that sort of stuff. And then all the way down to solopreneurs who are just starting out, that are trying to build business or have been in business for maybe a few years, maybe longer, but are just stuck. Like they can't kind of break that wall and take their business from it just being them to starting to work out how to bring other people in, scale, and so on. Currently, I guess most of your clientele, if not all, are corporations, as you mentioned. But do you ever get involved with those people who might actually have something where you can see, because you have a 3D view on this with all the experience you have, that there is something that they are doing that could be much bigger, but the solopreneur themselves is kind of the block to that, the dam that is stopping that from sort of happening, the log jam?
So Secrets of Next Level Entrepreneur was written with a title that can be slightly misleading. So entrepreneurs are not only people who own their own business. I understand the term next level entrepreneur as someone who takes charge of the future. And that can be with your own business or within the business that you work for.
Yeah.
So when we now take a look at the people in big corporations, they often have, let's say, experience, sometimes a lot of smart people around them. So there is more knowledge, more experience, and there are certain ways at play or processes at play that help them professionalize how they operate. So these tools, systems, knowledge, they often don't exist with the small companies you just mentioned. Very often, small businesses are being born out of a dream, a necessity, or a wish to do something better that's currently not working out there. So a lot of businesses are being built because someone needs something and cannot find it on the market. So that's when they start to create their own brand, their own professional services business, whatever it is. And when we are really passionate about what we do, we often forget that passion doesn't pay the bills. So we do invest tons of time, every penny that we have. And then all of a sudden, and I've been there myself as a solopreneur, we realize we're kind of stuck. We don't really know why. We poured all our heart in, and we're still not seeing the traction that we want to see. And yes, from time to time, smaller company owners approach me, solopreneurs approach me, and very often we work for 3 or 4 sessions together to get them unstuck. And what we actually do is we take a look at what I call a business strategy. And every single time, they do not have a business strategy. They just have fragments of what is a business strategy. And I'm not talking about a super complex and sophisticated strategic, I don't want to use the term strategic plan because that's also part of the problem. It's really about knowing how do you want your business to look like in 2 to 3 years, and what are the priorities that you should focus on to move the needle in that direction. So what I hear very often is people talk about strategic planning, and this is one of the issues. A strategy is not a plan. A strategy is something that, so when you hear the term strategic planning, start running away, because these people confuse strategy and planning, put it into one concept, trying to do both at the same time while failing to do either properly. And this is a huge issue because we need strategy and we need planning. We need both, but they are very, very different in nature and need a very different mindset and approach and way of thinking. So
Alex,
strategy is all about... Go ahead.
Can I just interrupt you very quickly just to talk to the audience? Right, so you lot, do you remember that we were all confusing branding and marketing, and we were meshing those two things together? And then last season of Tailoring Talk, we spent a bit of time with both branding and marketing experts to try and separate the two. I think what Alex is going into is the same thing. And actually, if you think about it, strategy and planning, Alex, are two words that are very often interchanged.
Yes.
And people mistake them for, like you said, mistake them for being exactly the same thing. And then you do hear, actually, I hear it in organizations I go into, because look, I'm a tailor, right? So I make clothes for people. What do I know? But I am privy to a lot of conversations and things that go on. And very often I'll be waiting to go into a boardroom because I'm fitting someone, but there's a meeting that's still, and I see on whiteboards the phrase strategy planning so much, so many times. It's crazy. Yeah. But I've never, ever seen the two words under completely separate headings. So if you, I guess you were going to do it before I rudely interrupted you. If you untangle that mess of Christmas lights for us, that would be amazing.
It will be my pleasure. And if you want to listen to someone who is actually really brilliant at that, and it like influenced me big time in the way how I think and how I operate, is Roger Martin. He has a brilliant talk on YouTube that went viral. It's about 15 minutes, probably one of the best 15 minutes for every business owner to invest in, to understand the difference between strategy and planning and why it is absolutely dangerous to mix the two. So strategy is all about the future. It's about the unknown. It's about understanding the customer. It's about building something of value. And it's outward looking. Planning is inward looking. It's about allocating resources. It's about who does what by when. Where strategy is the unknown piece, or the future is the unknown piece, and strategy tries to help you prioritize what will you bring to your desired future. Planning is about the illusion of control. You cannot control the future. So strategy inherently deals with something unknown. But planning is something you can do. You can decide who does what by when and how much budget they have for doing it. You can set up reporting lines. All these things give you a sense of control. And that's what we humans desperately need, because we can't live in an entirely chaotic world. So we need both. We need to understand our priorities that will bring us to our desired state in the future. And once we understand these priorities, we can create a plan to bring these priority into our businesses. And this is something that's often been mixed together. And as a result, you're failing to do both properly. And they realize it on the way. At some point in time, they always realize, wait a second, there's an element missing. We're turning in circles. why doesn't this work? Yeah, well, it works because you haven't done step number one properly. And going back to, so this is applicable to all kinds of businesses, to the biggest companies I work with. I see these issues. That's why they work with me, to solve these problems. For the solopreneurs or smaller business owners, it's very often just a few questions that they've never asked themselves before that I ask them. And what comes with it is clarity of thought and more direction. Knowing, if I asked you, how would you want your business to look like in 3 to 4 years' time? I don't know whether you would have a concise answer that you could just shoot out in 3 to 4 sentences. Most of the business owners, they don't look into the future. They are struggling with the day-to-day and just to try to making ends meet and trying to grow the business, getting the next client. And the smaller the business, the more danger that brings, because if you are only reeling in the herring while it's there and not understanding that the herring might be gone at some point in time, you won't have an idea what to do once the herring is gone. And that is really, really dangerous for small companies because it makes your business volatile to fluctuations. And if these fluctuations are too big, you go out of business. So that's when we talk about cash flow crunches and things like that. You might have a great product or you might have a great service, but if your order intake and your cash flow therefore is unstable, it can actually damage your business to a degree where it can't be repaired anymore.
Yeah.
So these few questions often bring the clarity that break the dam that you mentioned and let the water flow. And it's not that, you need a big consulting project to do that. It's facilitation, it's coaching, it's executive coaching that often does the trick.
Yeah. And I can also see when you translate that to a big organization, before I got into tailoring, I used to work for a big IT organization. And having always had a kind of self-starter sort of mindset, I was never a typical employee. I was always the first one there. I was always the last one to leave. Like my CEO would have to kick me out of the building. In the end, they gave me a key and they gave me the alarm code and they said, you just open up and close because we just can't get rid of you. And in the end, I kind of just basically saw where the gaps in the business were. And then I would just take it upon myself to then basically start the businesses within the businesses, grow those up. And then I could effectively then sell them off to another stakeholder within the corporation. And then I would just go find the next thing and go and do that. Now I don't know what the question was that I was going to ask you. As a leader in a larger organization, and again, we have a lot of those listening to this podcast. How do you help them to recognize those types of individuals in the business and then start to empower them for the greater good, if that makes sense?
Just trying to make sure I understand your question properly. So you're asking how I help these. Go ahead.
So when you're the leader of a bigger organization, you have a lot of resource at your disposal, but you might not know it. So I guess my question is how would you help leaders to kind of identify where they have these pockets of talent within their organization that they can actually utilize for the greater good to help to start to push things on, to realize strategy, visions, etc., rather than thinking it's something they need to take on all by themselves all the time?
It's one of the biggest levers for a successful strategy for CEOs and C-suite in general, to understand that they are not alone. The issue is everyone in an organization looks up to the board, to the CEO, and they expect them to create a strategy to help the company be successful in the future. Now, the problem is most CEOs did not become CEOs because they are great strategists. They became CEOs because they were really, really good at what they were doing. Depending on the size of the organization, these people often are very operational still involved. They are sometimes the biggest salesperson for the organization. So it's often not their strategic knowledge that brings them to the C-suite. It's something else. But all of a sudden, everyone's looking to them. It's like, yeah, give us a strategy. No, that's not how it's going to work. So first of all, if you pretend in a world that we're living in that you understand everything to a degree that you're able to develop an entire company strategy on your own, no one will believe that anymore. So the world is just too complex. In addition, that's just not how people want to work these days. We don't want the patriarchal leader to tell us where the ship is sailing and then we just continue doing our chores. We want to have a say and want to understand how we can contribute. So that's when you open up the process and when you invite people in the organization to step up and just stake their claim and be like, I'm in this with you. I want to contribute. I see this as a chance to learn, to help the organization thrive, and just to add my 2 cents to the future of this business. So opening it up is a passive way of inviting collaboration for strategy. But then you should also do your homework and have your ear very close at the organization, because not everyone who is able to contribute will be willing to speak up. So sometimes you need to identify these people and nudge them, and then they happily contribute.
Yeah, I like that. Having your ear to the ground, and having it open to look for those people, because you're absolutely right. They don't. I sometimes have clients that are within a larger organization, and obviously, privately as their tailor, again, they'll tell me a lot of things, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, I need to have a separate conversation with your boss, and I need to nudge him or her in your direction. And I don't understand why you're not speaking up about it. But often it's because they're worried, they're scared that they're going to get sort of brushed aside, or they're not going to be listened to or taken seriously, or that they're speaking out of turn, when really all they genuinely want is not even about career advancement. They just want to help. Okay.
It heavily depends on the culture that you are creating as a C-suite and as a leadership team, whether people willingly speak up and openly speak up and come forward when they see an opportunity, or whether they feel insecure and unsure whether they should speak up.
Yeah. Now, when you then take that to the opposite end of the business spectrum, and you're dealing with a smaller organization or a smaller business that don't have all of this potential resource at their disposal, usually it's maybe one person or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 maximum. Strategy planning, where the hell do they start, Alex?
First of all, there are tons of free resources out there. The internet is an open library.
They need to buy Secrets of Next Level Entrepreneurship, right?
I wouldn't necessarily start there. I would just say the internet is an open library. There is all the knowledge in the world. It's more or less for free. And of course, you can read books, you can take courses. The first step is to actually educate yourself around what you're actually talking about. I just yesterday saw a strategy explainer video of an organization talking. It was created for their employees, tens of thousands of people. And I saw these 5 minutes and I was like, show me the person that now understands that strategy. It was a bunch of buzzwords thrown around without explanation, without telling people what they mean, how they are being used. It was just so confusing to watch. And don't fall into that trap. Don't start using terms like vision, strategy, mission, impact without understanding what they actually mean and how you can use them in a cohesive way. They all mean something else. Just like strategy isn't planning and planning isn't strategy, vision and mission is not the same. And impact and purpose are not the same. And don't fall into the trap using fancy sounding words just because you think you should. try to understand what they mean and how you want to use them in your business. And this is key. It's not about academic definitions. It's about how you use them in your business in a cohesive and concise way. That's step number one. Step number two is reach out for help. Even if you're a solopreneur, you have people around you that you trust. Start talking to them. If you feel that the people around you don't understand enough about the topic of strategy, find someone who does. Find mentors, other entrepreneurs that have been where you are maybe 2 or 3 years ago. People are generally nice. If you ask them for help and their opinion, they typically give you help and their opinion. And then there are people like me that do that for a living, that have become successful because of their knowledge about strategy. If you put me into a boardroom, I don't understand their business. I have no idea what they're selling. And I don't have to understand how their business works. My job is to ask the questions that help them get their head around the future and then translate it into action. And whether you're a big business or a small business, that doesn't even matter. The questions are the same. It's just the difference between working with a large organization and with a small organization for me personally is large organizations have more people, and therefore creating a strategy just takes longer because there are more voices that need to be heard, and there is more input and there is more at stake. So you might move a little slower and more carefully. And of course, there are more stakeholders involved. Sometimes you need the approval of a board. Sometimes there are unions involved, whatever it is. And yeah, I think these are the three biggest levers that will help you as a small entrepreneur. In a nutshell, educate yourself, find people that can support you, and ask for help.
Yeah. Wow. So you have Secrets of Next Level Entrepreneurs. Is that your first book?
It is the first book that was published. The Strategy Legacy was actually written before Secrets of Next Level Entrepreneurs, right? But it's going to be published after it.
Okay. But is that something that you've already... Did you write that for clients? Or was it always
Strategy Legacy? The Strategy Legacy was written for... It's a funny story how it actually started. I never wanted to write a book, by the way. I sat down when I transitioned from Germany to Canada. I sat down, I was like, I feel really guilty for leaving my clients behind with which I've worked for like a decade now. And a friend of mine was like, yeah, but you realize you're moving closer to those in North America at the same time, right? So get over it. Hand them a nice farewell present and off you go. And we had a hearty laugh at if it were that simple. But that idea of a present started to develop into, well, I'm not a gift giver, like in the sense of, hey, here's a bottle of wine. I started writing down what I did with them I wanted to write it down in a way that they can use it without me. Because I don't want to do long haul flights all the time. Yeah. Out of obvious reasons. I'm a young father. I want to spend my time with my child as much as I can, and also environmental impact. So I thought, give them something that they can just use in their business. And it just got more and more and more. And all of a sudden it was like 200 pages. And I'm like, that is not a little present anymore. That is a book. And so then I started to reach out to people that understand how books are being written, that understand the publishing industry. And we started to turn this pamphlet into something of value. And yeah, that's what's coming out in the fall. Really, really proud of the book. Also really proud of the people who endorse it. There's a nice endorsement by Marshall Goldsmith on the cover. And it's something that has been a long time coming. Whereas Secrets of Next Level Entrepreneurs, inherently, because there are more than just one contributor, was a book that was put together in a much quicker way. And yeah, they are really different books. And I would love to talk to someone who has read both and tell me what stood out, and just to help me understand as an author what the value in both books are.
I'll do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
So as soon as the next one comes out later this year, I'll pre-order it as soon as I'm able to. And in the meantime, I'm putting Secrets of Next Level Entrepreneurs on the top of my reading list.
Do you read electronically, or do you like to hold a book in your hands?
Do you know what? This is really funny, Alex, right? What I find is that I'm preferring an actual physical book in my hands. I will very often, especially if it's someone I know, like with you now, we have a form of a relationship that has just begun. So with you, I will buy the electronic version and I will buy the physical print version. I kind of,
It's
I kind of,
hilarious.
but I find that if I've got the physical version, I'll want to read it. There's something, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas when it's electronic, it's like music. So I'll give you the parallel with music. Um, so much of music now is different to when we were kids. When we were kids, we would save up our pocket money, we would go to the record store, we would look at CDs, and you'd bring it home and unwrap it. There was a big deal about the day of release of a new album by your favorite band, and you'd get the CD home, and while you were listening, you would take the cover out and you would read the lyrics and who played the piano on a track or whatever. Nowadays it's streaming, it's disposable, it's like it pops up on your phone, you're like, huh, okay, they've released a new album, I didn't know that was coming, I will listen to it now, get bored of it, listen to something else. And that's what I find. It's exactly the same with books that you purchase or download electronically. They're there, you can access them anytime you want. It means that you then collect thousands of books electronically that you never ever read. So sorry, that was my long way of answering your question. I prefer physical, but I will buy
I
both
love that analogy with music.
when it's someone
It
I
really
know and I have.
resonates.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I really got into vinyl again, and what I was saying, and it is. I said to my wife, I said it's that whole slowing down and appreciating things and soaking it in.
Yeah.
So yeah. I definitely prefer the analog format, that's for sure. But I will be your student via book for sure. And
I
there was
guess it's
something
really
else.
interesting if you have an audience, and it doesn't matter whether you're an author or whether you produce records or whatever type of content that you create, that you put into a compartmentalized thing like a record or a book. I always wonder whether like artists that have released several albums throughout their career ever talk to someone who has listened to these albums over the years and ask them what the essence is for them. Because for you as an artist or as a writer, the essence is clear, because it's the book as such is the essence that was created after a long thought process, and where a lot of, I mean, just to give an example, Secrets of Next Level Entrepreneurs originally had more than 80,000 words. The book, as it's being published, has way less because, conciseness.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting for me I'm a huge fan of music, and I never had the opportunity to ask, an artist that has been around for a decade, whether they talk to a listener of their art and what their key takeaway is. And I always, at the beginning when I started writing, I had this idea at some point in time, I will ask people when they read one book and then the next, where the connections are, what connections do they make in their heads based on their individual experience? Because that's something you as an author can never know.
Yeah. I mean, I've got a feeling as an author that you're very concise and to the point, and that there's none of this nonsense fluff around. Because I think that's a problem a lot of people have with particularly business books nowadays, or things to do with personal development, coaching, etc. Is that you buy a book because of what it says on the cover, but then you open the book and it takes about 4 chapters before you finally get to what you bought the book for.
Yeah, isn't that the most annoying thing?
Yeah.
I mean, I recently bought a book and started reading, and after 50 pages, 50 out of 180, I threw the book into the recycling because it's the paper that it was written on wasn't worth it. It's really annoying for readers to, or just reading books that basically are a long sales pitch for the business that the person runs that wrote the book. That's just not what you want as a reader. You want concise information, you want learning, you want knowledge, you want entertainment, depending on whatever you buy and read or listen to. And that's what you should provide as an author when you write a business book. Provide something that the reader can take into action right now. And I believe that working with professionals to release a book is one of the best ways to make sure that this happens. So I actually dedicate the acknowledgements in Secrets of Next Level Entrepreneur largely to these people that made this book into what it is, into a concise collection of very, very actionable chapters. And that is due to people reading these chapters and making them into a full meal each. These are editors. These are the people that did not write the book. These are the ones that, free of love for the chapter, tell you what they think about it and how they think they can make it better. And if you are open enough as an artist, as an author, whatever it is that you are, maybe even as a tailor, to someone telling you what they see that's not needed and what they feel is lacking, you can raise your game to the next level. And by the way, that is true for every business owner if you listen to your customers.
Yeah, the principles are the same. The other thing that I love about you, and it's been so nice getting to know you over the last 40 minutes or so, that, you know, I know when you're working with businesses that you're really passionate about working with businesses who are not solely about trying to generate as much profit as they can, that there has to be some good that they are looking to do, their goals in terms of so, you know, I was talking to one of my clients today. I hadn't spoken to him for a while, actually, partly again due to the pandemic, but it was really nice to catch up with him and find out what he's been doing. And he was in property investment, he still is, but they saw a gap in the care home market over here. Very controversial topic at the moment over here, with especially the pandemic being one of those things. But they basically, long story short, let me see if I get this concept right. So they developed a care home. So they build care homes, but they do it with the local authorities, and it's building care homes for based on the same model as some of the most luxurious care home providers in this country, but for the opposite end of the demographic, for poor people who would never in their wildest dreams be able to afford that level of care home. So working with local authorities within the grant structure, et cetera, they basically build care homes for the poorer demographic of society, but they're not just care homes. Everybody has their own front door. They're care homes with dignity. Mm-hmm. So they have the care staff available to people when they need them, rather than the typical kind of care home model that you have over here, which is all about profit. It's about maximizing every penny. For all intents and purposes, the people coming through the care homes are like cattle. They come in, they stay for a while, the families pay a fortune, they get the worst care possible in the cheapest possible way, they die, the next one comes in. This is the complete opposite of that. And I wanted to keep him on the phone, and I'm seeing him in a couple of weeks because he needs to get new clothes. But that's, for me, going to be an aside. I want to find out all about, because what they're doing, and he was downplaying it. And I said to him, this is amazing stuff, that the impact that you're going to have is incredible. And I get the feeling that that's something that you look for with companies that you're possibly going to be working with, to see if there is more to them than just, Alex, hey, I need to get you in to help us sort things out because we just need to keep making money all the time. And then there's the other side to you, which is that, again, it's not just about helping unblock entrepreneurs, executives, etc., but also it's about helping them to then lead a life of fulfillment, because that is often something that gets left behind as well, but is very, very important. Am I right here? Sorry, I'm psychoanalyzing you.
That's totally fine. Yeah, you got that completely right. You know, I love what I do, and I love what I do because I see that I can have an impact. And I don't want to waste my time with companies that, if I ask them what their purpose is, they tell me to make more money. This is just not what I want to do. It's not the type of people I want to be around. I want to be around people that I can help reach that next level, whatever that is, individually, personally, and as a business. And it is so much easier to achieve something great when you have the right people around you. I'm not in the business world to educate people that shareholder capitalism is a thing of the past. If you are still stuck in that old paradigm, you need to unstuck yourself. That's not my job. I want to work with people, with leaders, with companies that fully embrace their responsibility as leaders. And that means responsibility for their families and the communities where they live in, responsibility for the people that they lead and the businesses that they lead, and responsibility towards society as a whole. Because as a business, you do have a responsibility, and people see how you operate. You might think that you are an indispensable contributor of rare metals, gold or diamonds to the world, and they make all kinds of nice things out of these materials. But society might see you as one of the biggest destroyers of natural habitat. And they see it. Whether you realize it or not, people see it. So I love working with people that are mindful about the impact that they have on humans, on the planet, and on the bottom line. So people, profit, and planet, if you want. And it gives me massive joy to work with those kinds of leaders, because they are leveraging what they want the world to be to create companies that are way more than just a place where people go to earn a living. They create places of belonging. They create places where you can bring your full self to work because you are valued for who you are, what you know, what you can contribute to build something extraordinary. And that fires me up as a facilitator to work with these kinds of people. You can create real magic.
Wow, that's so powerful. And that's like a beautiful place to end this. I want to tell everybody you need to go to Alex's website where you can download free reading samples of his books. I mean, to be honest, I'm going to put the links to where you can actually order his books and just go to that instead. But anyway, it's www.brueckmann, BRUECKMANN.ca/books. Alex, I can't let you go without, because I've seen the Death Star on your shelf behind you. And
it's a piggy bank.
Is it the Death Star piggy bank? That's so cool. For your son?
Yes, it's the Death Star piggy bank for my son.
Oh my God, that is so, so cool. So look what I've got here. So I've not set my recording studio up properly yet, but all these things will be in the background.
Grogu!
Yeah, it's the talk.
Or as my 3-year-old would call him, Baby Yoda.
Baby Yoda, yeah, exactly. You know, Grogu said his first words 2 episodes ago in The Mandalorian.
Did he? Yeah, he did. You're right.
When they're in the shuttle, Bo-Katan and Jin
Din
and
Djarin.
the armorer lady, I can't remember her name, and they all said
armorer.
when they decide, yeah, the armorer, when they had their little strategy session. And then they decided this is the way, and they each said this is the way, and then he made that little squawk. He was saying this is the way.
Oh, nice.
Okay, shut up now. Seriously, that thing doesn't shut up. But I've got all sorts behind my monitor here. I've got all sorts of stuff. I've got Porgs. I've got Rey is standing there with her lightsaber. It's all going off in here.
Nice.
But yeah, I had to just ask you about Star Wars. So it's obviously you've been a big fan since an early age.
Yes, absolutely. I remember vividly when I saw it the first time. I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. You know, and ever since it was, and there's not a single experience, like movie experience, that is comparable to it. There were books and sequels of books that I devoured that have a similar impact on me. But I mean, it's to be honest, I mean, look at what this franchise turned into. It is just the oldest thing on earth, good versus evil, and we all just want to know how it ends.
Yeah, it's so funny because as you were giving a lot of real life business examples, I kept thinking of the Empire.
Yeah, that is the Empire, by the way.
Because if you think that's really cool as well. So Alex is on
this.
Put this on YouTube.
This is the landing platform on the moon of Endor.
Yeah, I recognize that. Yeah.
And when you look really close, you can even see the Death Star up here.
I can just the resolution's not great, but I can just see the shape of it. Yeah, exactly.
Nothing better than a podcast geeking out about Star Wars, right?
Oh God, yeah, no, totally. Well, we just had Star Wars Celebration Europe here in London this past Easter weekend, which was phenomenal, and obviously loads of new stuff announced. But I'm guessing that you were probably a fan of Timothy Zahn's original Thrawn trilogy.
No, not really.
Or you didn't read it? Was it Heir to the Empire? And so for me, I might be a little bit older than you, but when Return of the Jedi happened, that obviously there was no more Star Wars. So you know, new Star Wars adventures took place in your mind until the books started to come out. Yes. So that Thrawn trilogy for me was kind of like the next series of films. And now we're just sport for choice. I had a friend who was really moaning and being critical about the way Star Wars is going under Disney. And I said, you know, I'm not going to get into the whole criticism because actually all these shows and films, a lot of work has gone into them by the actors, the set designers, and so on. And I don't want to criticize the hard work that people put in, even if sometimes the results have been a bit hit and miss. At the end of the day, as Star Wars fans, we're in this golden age that we never thought would happen, where we just have an abundance of Star Wars all the time. And given the choice, I'd rather live in that world.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. I don't want to watch, Return of the Jedi for the 100th time. I'd rather dive into something new.
Exactly. I could talk to you about Star Wars all day, but I'm not going to do that. Alex, thank you so much. Have you had fun today?
Oh, I did. This was an unexpected pleasure and a podcast that is different in many ways than many other podcasts that I listen to.
Oh, thank you. I really, really appreciate that. And that's actually what you were talking about with feedback and so on. It's something that I seek all the time with the podcast because it is kind of unusual, actually. And I kind of like being a bit unusual.
I can tell. That's a good thing.
Brilliant. Alex, thank you. And thank you all so much for joining Alex and I on this episode. Don't forget, Tailoring Talk is on Instagram at Tailoring Talk Podcast. You can email me at tailoringtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review. You can click the share button in your player to send this episode on to someone you know who might get some help or be inspired by what Alex and I discussed today. If you're enjoying Tailoring Talk and want to support the show, you can buy me a coffee at the usual place. Have a great week. Be good to each other, and I'll see you on the next one.